Imagine this. You wake up on a Tuesday morning, and before your eyes fully open, before you check your phone or feel the weight of your obligations, a single thought pierces through the fog of sleep. I'm running out of time. Not in some distant, abstract way, but with the visceral certainty of sand slipping through fingers you can't close. You can't name what you're running out of time for exactly. It's not a deadline at work or a birthday approaching. It's something deeper, more total. It's the feeling that life itself is accelerating, that the days are blurring together, that you're watching your existence stream past like scenery from a train window you can't slow down. If this feeling has been haunting you, if you've been searching for why time feels like it's slipping away, what you're about to discover will fundamentally change how you see your entire existence. Don't look away now. This might be the most important thing you hear today. You try to shake it off. You tell yourself it's anxiety, stress, the modern condition. But throughout the day, it returns in flashes, waiting in line for coffee, scrolling through your phone, sitting in traffic. The sensation that time is not just passing, but escaping. That somewhere, somehow, you've fallen behind in a race you never agreed to run. And every moment spent not doing something important feels like theft from a diminishing account you can't refill. Here's what makes this feeling so unbearable. You have no idea what you're supposed to be doing with this time you're so afraid of losing. If someone asked you right now, what are you running toward? What are you trying to accomplish before time runs out? Could you answer with genuine clarity? Or would you give them the rehearsed responses about career goals, family plans, experiences you want to have, all true enough on the surface, yet somehow not quite touching the raw nerve of the anxiety itself? The paradox is exquisite and maddening. You feel desperately pressed for time, yet you can't articulate what you're pressed for. You feel behind schedule, yet you don't know what schedule you're following. You feel like you're wasting your life, yet you can't define what it would mean to not waste it. This isn't the productive urgency of someone with clear goals and limited time. This is something else entirely, a formless dread that masquerades as time pressure, an existential panic wearing the mask of busyness. And so you do what everyone does. You speed up. You optimize, you multitask, you fill every gap in your schedule because empty time feels like dying in slow motion. You listen to podcasts at 1.5x speed, you answer emails while eating, you measure your worth in productivity metrics. You treat time like an enemy to be conquered, a resource to be maximized, a competition to be won. But no matter how much you accomplish, no matter how efficiently you move through your days, the feeling doesn't subside. If anything, it intensifies. Why? Why does doing more make you feel like you have less? Why does every achievement feel like it's coming too late? Why does the future feel like it's shrinking even as you race toward it? Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to face. This isn't about time management. It's not about productivity hacks or better scheduling or finding your passion. This anxiety about running out of time isn't a problem to be solved. It's a confrontation with something you've been avoiding your entire life. Something so fundamental, so absolute, that your entire relationship with time has become an elaborate defense mechanism against acknowledging it. Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher who spent his life excavating the structures of human existence, understood this with brutal clarity. He knew that our frantic relationship with time, our obsession with busyness, our terror of wasting a single moment, all of it is rooted in one inescapable fact. We spend our lives trying to forget. You are going to die. Not in some vague, distant future, not as an abstract concept or philosophical musing, but actually, certainly, permanently, and you have no idea when. Every moment you're alive is one moment closer to the last one. Every tick of the clock is counting down to an end you can't negotiate with or postpone. You are, in Heidegger's haunting phrase, a being toward death, a creature whose very existence is defined by its relationship to its own ending. And here's where it gets interesting. Heidegger argued that this isn't just depressing fatalism, it's the key to everything. The anxiety you feel about time, the sense of urgency without direction, the feeling of falling behind, these aren't symptoms of living wrong. They're symptoms of knowing something your conscious mind refuses to fully acknowledge. Your temporal anxiety isn't the problem, it's the messenger, and what it's trying to tell you might be the most important thing you ever hear. But before you can understand the message, you need to understand why you've been running from it your whole life, and why that running has become the very thing that makes time feel like it's slipping away. The problem began long before you were old enough to notice it. Somewhere in childhood, you learned an insidious lie about time, that it was something you had. Teachers parceled it out in neat segments: class time, recess time, homework time. Parents managed it with schedules and bedtimes. The world taught you that time was a possession, a resource you could save or spend, waste or invest. And implicit in this teaching was a darker lesson. If you had time, you could also run out of it. But Heidegger saw through this illusion with surgical precision. In his masterwork, Being in Time, he argued that we don't have time the way we have money or possessions. We don't exist in time like objects in a container. We are temporal beings. Time isn't something external to you. It's the fundamental structure of your existence itself. You are time, living and breathing and dying. Every heartbeat is time embodying itself. Every decision is time choosing its own shape. This distinction isn't semantic wordplay. It's the difference between feeling like time is something happening to you versus recognizing that you are time happening. When you treat time as a possession you might lose, you create an adversarial relationship with your own existence. You become the anxious guardian of a resource that's perpetually slipping away, the desperate manager of something you can never actually control. And here's where the real problem emerges. To avoid confronting the fact that you are fundamentally temporary, that your time isn't running out because you are running out, you adopted what Heidegger called das Man, the they self. You started living according to what they do, what they value, how they measure a life well lived. You let the anonymous mass of social convention tell you what's worth doing with your time, what constitutes success, what deserves your precious hours. This is the great escape mechanism. As long as you're busy with what they say matters, climbing the ladder they built, achieving the milestones they marked, acquiring the symbols they value, you don't have to face the terrifying question of what you actually want to do with this finite existence. The anxiety about running out of time becomes a convenient distraction from the deeper anxiety about whether you're living your life at all. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher who preceded Heidegger's Existentialism, called this despair, not the dramatic despair of breakdown, but the quiet despair of living as someone you're not, the despair of the person who constructs an entire life around avoiding the responsibility of authentic existence. You fill your calendar, you optimize your routines, you chase after productivity and achievement, all while a small voice you've learned to ignore whispers, "But is this what I actually want? Is this who I actually am?" The cruel genius of this system is that it makes you complicit in your own evasion. Nobody forces you to live this way. You choose it moment by moment, because the alternative, stopping, becoming silent, asking yourself what you genuinely want from this limited time, is far more frightening than the anxiety of feeling like you're running behind. At least the anxiety gives you direction, purpose, a sense that you're doing something. The alternative might reveal that you don't know what you want at all. Nietzsche understood this cowardice with characteristic harshness. He wrote that most people are incomplete and fragmentary, living according to the herd's values rather than creating their own. They mistake motion for meaning, busyness for importance. They die having never truly asked, "What would I do with my time if I weren't afraid?" And the fear is profound, because acknowledging that your time is genuinely limited, not as an abstract fact, but as a lived reality that applies to you specifically, right now, means acknowledging that you will die without having done most of the things you could have done, without having become most of the people you could have been. The paths not taken vastly outnumber the paths you'll ever walk. The versions of yourself you'll never meet outnumber the one you're currently being. This is what Heidegger meant by thrownness. You've been thrown into existence without consultation, into a specific time and place and body and circumstance, with limited years and no guarantee of tomorrow. And yet you are responsible for what you do with this thrown existence. You can't blame your circumstances, your upbringing, your society. At the end, it will have been your life, shaped by your choices, and no amount of productivity optimization or schedule management will change the fundamental question: did you live it authentically, or did you spend your finite time being who they told you to be? This is the hidden problem beneath your temporal anxiety. You're not actually afraid of running out of time. You're afraid of running out of time living someone else's life.
The consequences of living in flight from your own finitude are far more insidious than simple anxiety or stress. They reshape your entire relationship with existence in ways you've stopped noticing, like background radiation you've adapted to, never realizing it's slowly changing your cellular structure. First, there's the phenomenon psychologists call temporal discounting, the cognitive bias that makes future rewards feel less real, less valuable than immediate ones. But this isn't just about choosing instant gratification over long-term benefit. It's something deeper. When you're in flight from death, when you're avoiding the reality of your finitude, the future itself becomes abstract, unreal, a place where consequences happen to some theoretical version of yourself you can't quite imagine. The person you'll be in 10 years feels like a stranger. The life you're building feels like fiction. This is why you can simultaneously feel like you're running out of time and procrastinate on the things that actually matter to you. The urgency you feel isn't about your real priorities. It's about the endless stream of immediate demands, the notifications, the emails, the social obligations that feel concrete and pressing precisely because they don't require you to confront who you are or what you want. They keep you in the shallow waters of existence, never forcing you to dive deep enough to touch the bottom where the real questions live. Heidegger called this mode of existence fallenness, not a moral judgment, but a description of how we fall into the patterns of the they, losing ourselves in the busyness of everyday concerns, the gossip, the trends, the distractions. You become so absorbed in managing the surface of life that you forget there's depth beneath it, and the anxiety about time passing becomes a strange comfort. At least it makes you feel like something is at stake, even if you can't name what. The neuroscience supports this philosophical insight in unexpected ways. Research on the brain's default mode network, the regions active when you're not focused on external tasks, shows that when people avoid self-reflection, when they constantly distract themselves, their sense of temporal continuity begins to fragment. Past, present, and future stop feeling connected. Your life stops feeling like a coherent narrative and starts feeling like a series of disconnected moments you're rushing through. This fragmentation is why time seems to accelerate as you age. It's not just that each year represents a smaller percentage of your total life. It's that you've stopped inhabiting time. You've stopped being present to your own existence. Days blur together because you're not actually living them. You're managing them, optimizing them, surviving them. And unlived time leaves no memory, no trace. It simply vanishes, which makes it feel like it's speeding up. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz and founded logotherapy, observed that people can endure almost any suffering if they have a why, a meaning that justifies the struggle. But the inverse is equally true. Without a sense of meaning, even a life of comfort and achievement becomes unbearable. The temporal anxiety you feel isn't just about not having enough time. It's about not having a sufficient reason to justify the time you're spending. This is the quiet crisis of modern existence. You have more life expectancy than any generation in human history, more leisure time, more freedom to choose how you spend your days, yet you feel more pressed for time than medieval peasants who worked from dawn to dusk just to survive. Why? Because they, at least, knew what they were living for, even if that meaning was given to them by religion, tradition, and necessity. You have to create your own meaning, and that terrifying freedom makes you want to run back into the comfortable cage of busyness. The cultural conditioning intensifies this flight. Capitalism needs you to believe that time is money, that productivity equals worth, that your value is measured by your output. It needs you to stay anxious, rushing, consuming solutions to problems it creates. Every app promises you to save you time. Every guru sells you efficiency. Every advertisement whispers that you're falling behind, that you need to do more, be more, achieve more now before it's too late. But late for what? The finish line keeps moving. The goalpost shifts. You achieve what you thought would bring peace, and immediately a new urgency replaces it. Because the system isn't designed to help you find peace with your finitude. It's designed to keep you productive until you die, preferably without ever stopping to ask whether this is actually how you wanted to spend your one wild and precious life. And here's the most devastating consequence of all. The more you run from your own death, the more you turn your life into a kind of death in life. You become a ghost haunting your own existence, watching it happen from a distance, never quite present, never quite alive. The days accumulate behind you like receipts from purchases you don't remember making, proof of time spent but not lived. Heidegger had a word for the person who avoids authentic confrontation with their own mortality: inauthentic. Not fake or false, but not quite real either. Going through the motions, playing the part, living, technically, but not in the way that counts. The question now is whether you're ready to stop running, whether you're ready to turn and face what you've been fleeing. Because the way out of temporal anxiety isn't forward, it's through.
The rebellion begins with a single, radical act. Stop trying to manage time and start acknowledging death. Not as a morbid fixation or depressive spiral, but as what Heidegger called Sein-zum-Tode, being toward death. This isn't about obsessing over dying. It's about recognizing that your mortality isn't some distant event that will happen to you eventually. It's the defining structure of your existence right now. Every choice you make, every moment you live, is shaped by the fact that you won't live forever. Death isn't waiting at the end of your timeline. It's woven into every second you breathe. And here's the revolutionary insight. When you stop running from this fact, when you turn and face it directly, something extraordinary happens. The anxiety doesn't intensify, it clarifies. The formless dread about wasting time crystallizes into a sharp, precise question. What actually matters to me? This is what Heidegger meant when he argued that authentic existence becomes possible only through confronting your own most possibility, death. Because death is the one experience that is absolutely, irreducibly yours. No one can die your death for you. No one can take your place. In that moment of ultimate singularity, all the masks fall away. All the roles you've played for others become irrelevant. All the ways you've lived for the they reveal themselves as elaborate distractions. When you truly absorb this, not intellectually but viscerally, your relationship with time inverts. You stop asking, how can I do more? And start asking, what is worth doing at all? You stop measuring your worth by productivity and start measuring it by authenticity. The urgent becomes distinguishable from the important, the necessary from the habitual, the chosen from the inherited. The ancient Stoics understood this practice intimately. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't pessimism, it was clarity. When you remember that today might be your last, the trivial concerns that consume most people's attention reveal themselves as the distractions they are. The petty arguments, the status anxieties, the endless consumption of content and products and experiences you don't actually care about, all of it becomes transparent. But here's where most people misunderstand this practice. They think accepting mortality means doing everything urgently, cramming as much as possible into whatever time remains, the bucket list mentality. But that's just another form of running, just the anxiety painted in different colors. True acceptance of finitude does the opposite. It slows you down. It makes you selective. It teaches you that since you can't do everything, you must choose carefully what you will do. The psychologist Irvin Yalom, who spent decades working with terminally ill patients, discovered something remarkable. People who knew they were dying often reported feeling more alive than they ever had, not despite their awareness of impending death, but because of it. The knowledge that time was genuinely limited stripped away the pretense, the procrastination, the living for later that had characterized their previous existence. They stopped saving their good dishes for special occasions. They stopped postponing important conversations. They stopped living as if they had unlimited time to eventually become who they wanted to be. This is the practice. Live as if you don't have unlimited time, because you don't. Start asking the hard questions. If you had 6 months to live, what would change about how you spend your days? What would you stop doing? What would you start? Who would you forgive? What would you create? What conversations would you finally have? Now ask yourself, why are you waiting? What permission are you seeking? What guarantee do you need that you'll never receive? The rebellion also means rejecting the culture's definition of productive time. In his book, Leisure, the Basis of Culture, philosopher Josef Pieper argued that the modern world has lost the ability to be idle, to simply be rather than constantly do. We've turned leisure itself into another form of productivity. We vacation to recharge for more work. We practice self-care to optimize our performance. We even meditate to increase our focus. But authentic existence requires what the Greeks called skale, the contemplative leisure from which we get our word school. Time spent not producing anything, not optimizing anything, not working toward any goal. Time spent simply experiencing your own consciousness, your own aliveness, your own being. This isn't wasted time. This is the only time that's fully lived. The practical rebellion looks like this. Choose one thing, just one, that you've been postponing because it doesn't fit the schedule, doesn't advance your career, doesn't impress others, doesn't check any boxes except that it matters to you, and do it. Not efficiently, not productively, not while multitasking or listening to a podcast. Do it with your full attention, as if this moment is the only moment you have, because it is. This might be terrifying. When you stop filling every second with achievement-oriented activity, you come face to face with yourself, with the silence, with the questions you've been avoiding, with the gap between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. But this terror is the gateway. On the other side of it lies something you've been seeking through all your busyness and optimization, the feeling of being genuinely alive.
Here's the truth that will either liberate you or terrify you, perhaps both. You have already run out of time. Not in the future, not when you're older, right now. This moment, as you read these words, is time you will never have again. The hour before this one is gone forever. Yesterday is as irretrievable as your childhood. The future you keep postponing your real life for will arrive as now, the same now you're currently treating as a waiting room for some better moment that never comes. Heidegger's most radical insight wasn't about death as an ending, it was about death as a revelation. In German, he used the term Vorlaufen zum Tode, running forward toward death or anticipating death, not as a morbid preoccupation, but as a practice of letting your mortality illuminate your present. When you truly grasp that you are dying, not someday, but continuously, with each passing second, the question of how to use your time dissolves into a more fundamental question. Who do you want to be in the time you're already living? This is where temporal anxiety finally reveals its deepest secret. It was never about time at all. It was about authenticity. The feeling of running out of time is the feeling of running out of chances to become yourself. The urgency you feel isn't about accomplishing more. It's about the terror that you'll die having never actually lived as who you truly are. That you'll run out of time, not because there wasn't enough of it, but because you spent it all being someone else. The philosopher Martin Buber distinguished between two fundamental orientations to existence, I-it and I-thou. In I-it mode, everything becomes instrumental, other people or tools, experiences or transactions. Time is a resource to exploit. This is the mode of productivity culture, of optimization, of treating your own life as a project to be managed. In I-thou mode, you encounter existence directly, presently, as a subject meeting another subject. No mediation, no using, just being with. Here's what changes when you shift from I-it to I-thou relationship with your own mortality. Death stops being the enemy stealing your time and becomes the teacher showing you what's real. Every moment becomes both more precious and less anxious. Precious because it's unrepeatable, singular, the only time you'll ever experience this exact configuration of existence. Less anxious because you stop trying to make it count for something beyond itself. It already counts. By virtue of being your lived experience, it already matters infinitely. The Zen Buddhists have a practice called Ichigo Ichi-e, one time, one meeting. Every encounter, every moment, every breath happens exactly once and never again. The tea ceremony you're in right now is the only time you'll ever be in this specific tea ceremony, with these specific people, in this specific moment of your life. Even if you repeat the ceremony tomorrow, you will have changed, they will have changed, the world will have changed. It will be similar, but not the same. Nothing is ever the same twice. When you truly understand this, not conceptually, but in your bones, the question of whether you're wasting time becomes absurd. You can't waste a moment that exists only once. You can only live it consciously or unconsciously, authentically or inauthentically, present or absent. The temporally anxious person is trying to accumulate moments, to make time add up to something, to justify their existence through achievement. The person who has faced their mortality understands that moments don't accumulate. They each stand alone, complete in themselves, needing no justification beyond being lived. Rainer Maria Rilke, the poet who corresponded with Heidegger about these questions, wrote, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything terrible is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. Your temporal anxiety, this dragon that's been chasing you, this feeling of never having enough time, what if it's actually the princess? What if it's been trying to get your attention, not to torture you, but to wake you up?
The anxiety about running out of time is your own mortality calling to you, begging you to stop living in postponement, to stop treating your life as something that will begin later when conditions are right. It's your deepest self screaming that you are alive now, that this is not a rehearsal, that the life you're waiting to start is already happening and you're missing it. The question isn't whether you have enough time. The question is whether you'll be present for the time you have, whether you'll stop treating your life as something happening in the background while you attend to more important things, whether you'll recognize that this moment, right now, however ordinary it feels, is your life actually happening, and you are in it, and it is ending, and that's what makes it sacred. You feel like you're running out of time because some part of you knows you are. That knowledge isn't meant to make you anxious, it's meant to wake you up, to make you stop postponing your real life, to make you recognize that the person you've been waiting to become, the life you've been planning to start, the authentic existence you've been preparing for, it's all been here, waiting for you to turn around and see it. Death is not the enemy of life. Death is the structure that gives life its shape, its urgency, its preciousness. Without endings, nothing would matter. Without finitude, there would be no choices, no sacrifice, no meaning. The very thing you've been running from is the thing that makes your existence significant. So stop running, turn around, face it. You are going to die. And precisely because of that, not despite it, but because of it, every moment you have is unrepeatable, unreplaceable, infinitely valuable. The anxiety about time was never the problem. The problem was thinking you had forever to finally start living. You don't. You have now, and now, and now. This is it. This is your life. Not the edited highlight reel, not the version you'll tell yourself about later, not the story you're building toward. This, right here, right now. This weird, messy, ordinary, miraculous fact of being alive and conscious in a temporary body in an incomprehensible universe. You're not running out of time, you're time running. And the question isn't whether you'll reach the finish line. The question is whether you'll be awake for the race.